Imagine the United States government trying to classify a math equation as a weapon of mass destruction. I mean, it sounds like a premise from a science fiction novel, right?
Oh, fully.
But as of this morning, it is actual federal policy.
Yeah, it really is a profound shift in how we view the invisible lines that govern our world. We are basically taking the heavy physical machinery of international diplomacy and trying to drop it onto weightless digital code.
And that is exactly our mission for this deep dive. Welcome to the conversation. Today, we are opening up a massive stack of source material from the Sunday, June 14th, 2026 edition of the Morning Briefing.
It's a big one today.
It really is. And, you are here because you want to get thoroughly caught up on a rapidly shifting world without the information overload, and we have you covered. So, okay, let's unpack this. Our goal today is to map out how the boundaries of our reality are being aggressively redrawn.
Right, on multiple fronts.
Exactly. We are going to look at physical borders in the Middle East, the digital borders being erected around artificial intelligence, all the way down to the biological borders of our own immune systems.
And just looking at these sources, what really stands out to you is the sheer collision of these events. I mean, the timeline is just accelerating.
It really is. So let's start with the physical map, specifically the incredibly tense situation unfolding in the Middle East over the next 48 hours.
Yeah, this is a critical window.
Definitely. According to the briefing, Qatari mediators have actually touched down in Tehran. Their stated goal is to finalize a U.S.-Iran deal to end the months-long war. And President Trump is publicly stating that this deal is approved in principle by all the involved parties.
Which, is the public diplomatic track.
Yeah.
But you really have to look at the ground reality running parallel to it.
Right, which paints a completely different picture. Because while those diplomats are presumably shaking hands in Tehran, Israeli warplanes just hit Beirut's southern suburbs. And this was a direct follow-up to Hezbollah drone strikes on the Galilee region. The Israel Defense Forces are reporting they have struck more than 70 Hezbollah sites in just the past 24 hours alone.
Yeah, this is the literal definition of precarious geopolitical leverage. I mean,
Yeah.
the sources lay out two completely opposed pressures right now.
Right.
On one side, Iran is making an absolute demand that Lebanon be included in any finalized agreement. Meanwhile, Israeli government ministers are actively pushing for an even tougher military line.
Because they want to secure their position.
Exactly. They're trying to establish facts on the ground before any ink dries on a treaty.
And then you add a layer of digital chaos right over the physical bombs. The briefing mentions an Iranian-aligned hacker group called Handala.
Yes, this was fascinating.
It really was. They are publicly taking credit for breaching the billing systems of 3 local California water utilities, Bakersfield, Visalia, and Chico. And I have to ask you about the strategy here, because they didn't go after a power grid. They didn't attack a military base. They literally hit the billing systems of municipal water departments. Like, is this basically the geopolitical equivalent of kicking someone under the table while you are shaking their hand?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that is a highly accurate way to look at it, honestly. In intelligence circles, this is known as a deniable pressure play.
A deniable pressure play.
Yeah. By targeting a soft, distributed municipal system, a nation-state can telegraph its reach. It is a way of saying, we can touch your domestic infrastructure without actually crossing a kinetic red line that would blow up the peace talks in Tehran.
Right, they aren't dropping a bomb, so it doesn't trigger a massive military response.
Exactly. The utilities are still assessing the damage, but the true test of this U.S.-Iran deal won't just be the cessation of physical missiles. It will be whether these parallel cyber activities dial back once an agreement is signed.
Wow. It just seems like every physical conflict now has this digital shadow attached to it.
Oh, absolutely.
And that dynamic is front and center at the G7 summit happening right now in France. You have French President Macron hosting President Trump at Versailles on Tuesday, and Indian Prime Minister Modi is already on the ground in Nice.
And, the official communiques coming out of that summit are going to look like standard international diplomacy. You are going to hear a lot about the Iran deal and the post-tariff economic landscape.
But the underlying substance, what they are actually arguing about behind closed doors, is industrial tech policy.
Yes.
The working sessions are totally dominated by artificial intelligence governance, undersea cable resilience following those recent incidents in the Baltic and Red Sea, and securing joint chip supply chains.
Because nations realize that the most important lines they draw are no longer on physical maps. They are drawing them around code. Which really brings us to the fundamental strategy pivot in the United States.
Right.
The U.S. government has decided to treat frontier AI models as a controlled strategic asset.
And here's where it gets really interesting. The U.S. has effectively blocked foreign access to Anthropic's most advanced AI models. This comes directly on the heels of the worldwide pull of Claude Fable 5 and Mythos 5 just last week.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at the international reporting specifically from Korea's Aju Press and India's Kandown, the Hindu, this entire coordinated crackdown was actually sparked by Amazon's CEO raising massive security concerns about the capabilities of Anthropic's latest releases. But wait, I need to stop here.
Sure, go ahead.
How on earth do you export control an AI model? I mean, I understand stopping a cargo ship full of physical semiconductors at a port, but an AI model is just math. It's software. Are they blocking API access? Are they banning the transfer of the actual server weights? Like, how do you enforce a blockade on a digital asset?
Well, that is the exact jurisdictional nightmare lawmakers are wrestling with right now. Historically, export control logic was reserved for the physical chips themselves.
Right.
Or for uranium, or military hardware.
Stuff you can touch.
Exactly. But now they're applying that exact same framework to the algorithmic weights, the core parameters that make the AI function.
Wow.
Yeah. They're legally declaring that the software itself is functionally equivalent to weapons-grade technology.
Okay.
And therefore, granting foreign entities access to that software, even via a cloud API, is a restricted export.
So the federal government is trying to build this massive digital fortress wall internationally. But domestically, it is an absolute standoff.
Oh, a total mess.
6 months ago, President Trump explicitly warned states to stop trying to regulate AI on their own. But according to the AP, states are doing exactly that anyway.
They are not listening.
Not at all. California, Utah, and several Republican-led legislatures are passing their own local guardrails targeting deepfakes, algorithmic discrimination, and high-risk AI uses in hiring.
Well, nature abhors a vacuum, and so do state legislatures. In the absence of a comprehensive federal framework, states are jumping in to protect their constituents.
But regulating AI at the state level feels like California trying to ban the wind. I mean, you can pass the law in Sacramento, but the data is housed in server farms in Nevada, the processing happens in Texas, and the final output is beamed directly to a teenager's phone in Los Angeles. The borders just don't functionally exist.
And this raises an important question about preemption. What we are watching is basically the preamble to a massive 2026 to 2027 court fight.
Oh, for sure.
Industry groups are already pre-positioning their legal arguments. They're getting ready to fight over whether AI regulation fundamentally belongs to the 50 individual states or if Washington has the exclusive authority to set the rules.
And while the courts get ready to spend years battling that out, the fallout is hitting you and your local communities right now.
Yep.
Because of that Anthropic export ban we just talked about, school districts and universities that built their entire administrative workflows on Claude Fable 5 and Mythos 5 spent this entire week scrambling for replacements.
It's been incredibly disruptive.
The stark realization for local school boards is that Washington has the power to turn off their AI access in a single business day.
Right, and it completely destabilizes how K-12 and higher education plan for the future. They are realizing they just cannot rely on a single vendor.
Yeah.
And concurrently, district legal counsels are going to have to interpret new state AI statutes every quarter for the next 18 months as this state-by-state rulemaking wave just crashes over them.
And what about the teachers actually inside those classrooms? The briefing highlights a fascinating new NPR Ipsos poll. A majority of K-12 teachers genuinely believe that AI will have a larger long-term impact on education than the internet or personal computers did.
It's a massive statement.
It is. And they are actively using it to save massive amounts of time on lesson planning and grading. But a similar majority is deeply worried that the technology is actively eroding students' critical thinking skills.
Which perfectly contextualizes the upcoming Senate Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Subcommittee hearing scheduled for Tuesday, June 16th.
Right.
Education Secretary Linda McMahon is involved, and the entire focus of the hearing is on this exact friction. The technology has arrived in the classroom at light speed, while the policy guidance for how to safely use it is moving at the speed of federal bureaucracy.
And the private market solution to this problem is more AI.
Of course it is.
Yeah. A Japanese startup is currently piloting a tool in universities to analyze academic papers and determine if they were written by a human or generated by a large language model. But again, the logic here feels circular to me.
How so?
Wait, so we are using AI to catch students using AI. Isn't that just an infinite loop of robots grading robots? And more importantly, what happens when the detector gets it wrong?
Well, that is the critical vulnerability in the entire detection market. I mean, even the developers of these tools openly acknowledge that detection accuracy is imperfect.
Right, there are false positives.
Exactly. If academic journals and universities are going to use these systems to police integrity, they absolutely must have a lightning-fast human appeal process in place. Because if a machine produces a false positive, the reputational damage to a student could be permanent and just devastating.
Wow. From the classroom, AI is moving directly into the science lab, and the results there are really staggering. Cambridge University researchers have just administered the first human doses of a vaccine, where the antigen sequence was generated end-to-end by an AI model.
What's fascinating here is the sheer compression of time.
Yeah.
Traditional vaccine discovery requires humans to physically test thousands of chemical combinations through very tedious trial and error.
Right, they spend years in a lab just trying to find the key that fits the lock.
Exactly. But the AI did the trial and error digitally. It ran millions of simulations to predict how the proteins would fold, and then essentially handed the human scientists the final optimized recipe.
That's wild.
Sequences that normally take years to discover were synthesized and screened in months.
Months instead of years. They are careful to note in the briefing that this is an early-stage human trial, but the implications for how we handle pandemic preparedness or even seasonal flu and rare diseases are huge. AI medicine has officially moved from a theoretical concept on a chalkboard to actually going into human arms in 2026.
It is an incredible leap forward for humanity, but the sources also contain a very stark warning for the infrastructure that all of this amazing technology actually runs on.
Yes, the Cybersecurity Watch in the briefing. It is a double hit this week for anyone working in IT.
Yeah, pay attention to this. First, Check Point has confirmed a critical zero-day vulnerability in its remote access VPN and mobile access products.
Okay.
It has been actively exploited since early May, and the attacks are linked to the Quillen ransomware affiliate program.
Okay, before we terrify every IT professional listening, let's translate that. A zero-day vulnerability essentially means the software manufacturer has had 0 days to prepare for it, right?
That's right.
Like the hackers found an open window into the building before the security guards even knew a window existed.
Precisely. And the second threat is equally severe. Google's threat intel team confirmed there is active in the wild exploitation of an Oracle PeopleSoft zero-day.
Oh boy.
It's being exploited by the Shiny Hunters extortion crew, and it is disproportionately hitting higher education institutions that run their human resources and financial modules on this software.
And what are they doing with it?
They are using an unauthenticated remote code execution path to drop stealth tools before pivoting to pure extortion.
Unauthenticated remote code execution. So that means the hacker doesn't even need to steal a password?
Yep.
They don't need an ID badge to get into the system. They can just send a specific command from the outside and the server blindly obeys it.
That is exactly how it works, which is why it is so dangerous. If you are running an unpatched Checkpoint gateway or an Oracle PeopleSoft stack, you do not wait until Monday morning to look at this. Both vendors have patches available right now.
So patch it immediately.
Campus IT teams need to be patching this weekend, rotating their credentials, and actively hunting for indicators of compromise inside their networks. These VPN 0 days are the textbook ramp for full domain ransomware. It is a drop-everything weekend emergency.
Wow. Well, between extortion crews, dropping stealth tools, and governments trying to ban AI math equations, the digital world feels overwhelmingly heavy right now.
It really does.
But the sources also remind us that humanity is still stepping back to celebrate physical shared realities. And we have to talk about New York City. The New York Knicks have won their first NBA championship since 1973.
The drought is finally over.
It is. They defeated the San Antonio Spurs 94-90 in Game 5. Jalen Brunson dropped an unbelievable 45 points to end a 53-year wait for the city.
The physical celebration is going to be historic, but, from an infrastructural standpoint, what happens next is a massive undertaking.
Oh, the parade.
Yeah, Mayor Zoran Mamdani announced a ticker tape parade for Thursday through the Canyon of Heroes.
It sounds like the biggest party of the decade.
It is, but it's also a massive logistics and connectivity stress test. The city has not thrown an NBA championship parade since the Nixon administration.
That's crazy to think about.
You are talking about moving millions of bodies into a highly confined physical space. Thursday is basically going to serve as a real-world rehearsal for MTA train capacity, for testing whether the mobile carrier towers can handle the data load, and for deploying crowd management drones. It's a live stress test ahead of hosting the World Cup final 2 summers from now.
Oh, the World Cup. That is already dominating both the physical and digital space. Day 4 is bringing us the Netherlands versus Japan, Curacao making its first ever World Cup appearance against Germany, and a bracket-saving 1-1 draw between Brazil and Morocco after an incredible double save by Alison Becker in stoppage time.
And what is fascinating there is watching how people engage with these physical events.
Right.
It is a physical sport played on grass, but the human reaction is deeply digital, spawning prediction threads, AI-generated highlight reels, and endless fan commentary online.
Though it seems there might be a ceiling to how much artificial content we actually want in our lives. Cesar Conde of NBC Universal News was trending this morning. He told the New York Times that the media pendulum is going to swing aggressively back toward mainstream legacy news brands because audiences are fundamentally tiring of AI slop.
It is a logical countertrend, honestly. As cheap, AI-generated content completely floods the zone, authenticated, human-driven reality becomes a premium, sought-after commodity.
Because you want to know it actually happens.
Exactly. People eventually want to know that a real human being witnessed the event they are reading about.
And speaking of deeply human reality, we promised you something worth smiling about today. We saved the most remarkable story for last. Doctors in the UK have achieved a revolutionary immune reset that has put lupus into full remission using a one-time experimental treatment.
And to understand how big this is, you have to look at the mechanism. Okay. Lupus is a chronic autoimmune disease where the immune system essentially forgets who the enemy is, and it starts attacking the body's own healthy tissues. Historically, the treatment was simply suppressing the entire immune system, sort of putting a heavy blanket over the fire.
But this approach is completely different.
Yes, this is an immune reset. They are essentially extracting the patient's faulty immune cells, wiping the slate clean with targeted cell therapy, and allowing a new, healthy immune system to rebuild itself from scratch.
So what does this all mean for the people living with this?
The human detail in the briefing is just beautiful.
It really is.
Patients who have been on heavy, exhausting immunosuppressants for years are talking to the BBC and saying they have never felt this good in their entire lives. They're describing a sudden return of energy, mental clarity, and a complete freedom from chronic pain that they had quietly given up on ever feeling again. And because this treatment targets the underlying mechanism of how the immune system functions, this same engineered approach is now being actively tested for other severe autoimmune diseases, including multiple sclerosis and rheumatoid arthritis.
That is just amazing.
It is a fundamental paradigm shift for millions of people living with chronic conditions.
You know, you read a medical headline like that twice just to make sure it's real, and then you immediately forward it to someone you love.
Oh, for sure. And if we synthesize everything we pulled from the sources today, whether it is a 53-year basketball drought finally ending, an engineered breakthrough that literally resets the biological borders of the human immune system, or the geopolitical struggle to control artificial intelligence, the through line is really clear.
Yeah.
We are living through a massive collective reset of what is possible. The old boundaries simply do not hold anymore.
They really don't. Which brings us back to where we started the map and the lines we try to draw to make sense of our world. Today's briefing showed us teachers comparing AI to the invention of the internet, while our federal government tries to ban its export like a physical weapon, and states scramble to pass local laws to build fences around it. But if AI truly becomes an invisible foundational infrastructure of our society, just like the internet, how long until trying to ban or detect AI becomes as impossible and arguably as obsolete as trying to regulate the use of electricity?
That's a great question.
Something to think about the next time you look at a map. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. Stay curious, stay informed, and remember that there is always something worth smiling about. See you next time.